Well folks, it seems the sequel to 2018's trade war blockbuster nobody asked for is here. Just when you thought it was safe to go back into the global market, the drama returns with a vengeance. This time, the former guy with the spray tan and even spray tan your ego, Donald J. Trump, has Europe in his sights. Yes, the man who brought you tariffs on China is now turning his attention to our friends across the Atlantic. Yes, as he gears up for another potential presidential run, Trump's decided to dust off his favorite economic weapon, tariffs. It's like he's found an old toy in the attic and just can't resist playing with it again. We've all seen this movie before. The plot is familiar. Threats, counter-threats, and a whole lot of economic uncertainty. Remember the last time? Stock markets went on a roller coaster ride, businesses were left in limbo, and consumers felt the pinch. Trump, with the subtlety of a rhinoceros in a china shop, threatens to slap tariffs on European goods. We're talking about cars, wines, cheeses, the stuff that makes life a little more enjoyable. The Europeans, understandably miffed, are now left scrambling to figure out how to respond. Do they retaliate? Do they impose their own tariffs on American goods? Or do they try to find a diplomatic solution? Do they try to reason with the man who once suggested injecting bleach as a COVID cure? It's a tough call. Reasoning with Trump has proven to be a challenge, to say the least. Or do they look for new friends, perhaps in the form of a certain economically powerful nation across the Pacific? China has been more than willing to step into the void left by the US in recent years. Buckle up, buttercups, because things are about to get messy. The global economy is already on shaky ground, and this latest move could send shockwaves through markets around the world. So grab your popcorn and stay tuned, the trade war sequel is just getting started. To understand Trump's latest protectionist tantrum, we need to revisit his America First policy. Now on the surface, putting America first sounds reasonable enough. Who doesn't want their country to succeed? But in Trump's hands, America First quickly devolved into America First, everyone else last. Remember those steel and aluminum tariffs back in 2018? The ones that were supposed to save American jobs but ended up costing American consumers billions? Yeah, those were a real hoot. Now, Trump's threatening to unleash a whole new wave of tariffs, this time targeting everything from German cars to French wine. Because nothing says make America great again like making Americans pay more for their Riesling. So, what exactly is in Trump's crosshairs this time? The answer might surprise you. Well, the short answer is a lot. But let's dive deeper into what this really means. We're talking billions of dollars worth of European exports, from luxury cars and auto parts to fine wines and cheeses. These are not just any products, they are the pride of Europe, representing centuries of craftsmanship and tradition. The man clearly has expensive taste. But his taste might come at a high cost for both sides of the Atlantic. Imagine, if you will, a world where your Audi costs as much as a small house. This isn't just hyperbole. Tariffs could significantly inflate prices, or consider a bottle of Bordeaux that requires taking out a second mortgage. These are the kinds of scenarios that could become reality. That's the reality American consumers could be facing if Trump follows through on his threats. Higher prices on European goods would hit American wallets hard. And let's not forget about the impact on European businesses. These companies rely heavily on the American market for their sales. Tariffs would make their products more expensive in the US, hurting sales and potentially costing jobs. Small businesses and large corporations alike could feel the squeeze. It's almost as if Trump's trying to start an economic war with one of America's closest allies. The ripple effects could be far-reaching, affecting not just the economy but also diplomatic relations. European farmers and artisans who have spent generations perfecting their crafts could see their livelihoods threatened. The cultural impact would be significant. And let's not overlook the broader implications for international trade and tourism. Higher costs could deter travel and trade, affecting both economies. Economic analysts are already predicting a turbulent period ahead. Stock markets could react negatively, and business confidence could take a hit. Public sentiment is also a factor. Protests and public demonstrations could become more common as people voice their discontent. In the end, the interconnected nature of global trade means that actions taken by one leader can have widespread consequences. The stakes are high, and the world is watching closely. As we move forward, the hope is that cooler heads will prevail and that a mutually beneficial solution can be found. After all, the relationship between Europe and America is too important to jeopardize. Let's hope that the rich history and strong ties between these two regions can guide them through this challenging time. The future of international relations may very well depend on it. The EU is now facing a dilemma. How do you reason with a man who seems to view international diplomacy as a cross between a cage fight and a reality TV show? Well, they have a few options, each with its own set of risks and rewards. They could choose the eye for an eye approach and retaliate with tariffs of their own. They could try to negotiate with Trump, hoping to appeal to his allegedly existing sense of reason. Or they could decide to buddy up with China, forming an economic alliance that would leave the US on the outside looking in. Let's break down each option, shall we? Section 5. Retaliation: an eye for an eye and a tariff for a tariff. The most tempting response for the EU is likely good old-fashioned retaliation. You know, the "you slap a tariff on our cheese, we'll slap a tariff on your Harley-Davidson's" approach. It's understandable. Nobody likes being bullied, especially not by a man who probably thinks the European Union is a type of currency. But here's the thing about trade wars. They're easy to start, and almost impossible to win. Sure, the EU could impose retaliatory tariffs on American goods, but then what? Does anyone really win when the price of bourbon in Brussels skyrockets while the cost of Belgian chocolate in Boston goes through the roof? Section 6. Negotiation: can't we all just get along? In a world where diplomacy often feels like a high-stakes game of chess, the European Union finds itself at a crossroads. The question on everyone's mind is simple yet profound. Can't we all just get along? Another option for the EU is to try to negotiate with Trump. Yes, you heard that right. The EU, with its intricate web of policies and regulations, might just have to sit down and hash things out with the man who has redefined unpredictability in politics. Now, I know what you're thinking. Negotiate with Trump? The very idea seems almost laughable, doesn't it? The man who has turned the art of the deal into a spectacle of bravado and bluster? The man who thinks negotiating involves repeatedly yelling "you're fired" at people? And you're not wrong. His approach to negotiation is anything but conventional. It's more like a reality TV show than a diplomatic discussion. Negotiating with Trump is like trying to play chess with a pigeon. He'll strut around, knock over all the pieces, and then declare victory regardless of the outcome. It's a chaotic dance where the rules are constantly changing, and the outcome is always uncertain. But hey, maybe this time will be different? Maybe, just maybe, the EU can find a way to navigate this unpredictable terrain. After all, diplomacy is about finding common ground, even when it seems impossible. Maybe this time the EU can appeal to Trump's allegedly existing sense of reason, and work out a deal that benefits both sides. It's a long shot, but in the world of international relations, long shots sometimes pay off. Okay, I know, it sounds like a pipe dream. The idea of Trump and the EU finding common ground seems as likely as pigs flying, but stranger things have happened in the world of politics. I'm starting to sound as delusional as a Trump supporter at a rally. The fervor and unwavering belief in the impossible are infectious, but reality often has a way of bringing us back down to earth. But desperate times, desperate measures, right? When the stakes are this high, sometimes you have to take a leap of faith. The EU might just have to roll the dice and hope for the best. After all, in the game of diplomacy, sometimes the most unexpected moves lead to the most surprising outcomes. Section 7, the China card, a transatlantic tango. Now for the most intriguing option, the EU could decide to play the China card. With the US seemingly intent on alienating its allies, China is more than happy to step in and fill the void. We could see a scenario where the EU and China strengthen their economic ties, forming a formidable trading bloc that would leave the US on the outside looking in. Imagine a world where China is Europe's biggest trading partner, where the yuan, not the dollar, is the dominant currency in global trade. It's a scenario that would have been unthinkable a decade ago, but is now a very real possibility. Section 8. The economic fallout. Brace for impact. Regardless of how the EU chooses to respond, one thing is certain: there will be economic consequences. Tariffs, by their very nature, are designed to disrupt trade and drive up prices. Consumers on both sides of the Atlantic can expect to pay more for a wide range of goods, from cars and electronics to food and clothing. Businesses already grappling with supply chain disruptions and rising inflation will face even more uncertainty, and the global economy, already teetering on the brink, could be pushed further towards recession. So, yeah, this whole trade war thing, not great, Bob. Section 9, 2024 and beyond. The future of trade wars. The big question now is, will any of this even matter after the 2024 US presidential election? If Trump loses, his successor could simply reverse course and undo all the damage he's done. But what if he wins? What if the next 4 years are filled with more trade wars, more protectionism, and more economic uncertainty? The future of global trade, and indeed the global economy, hangs in the balance. The EU has some tough choices to make, and the consequences of those choices will be felt for years to come. So, what will it be, Europe? Retaliation?